The Call of Duty Next event recently occurred on Thursday, October 5th, 2023, and with that, the brand new Modern Warfare Zombies was finally revealed to the world. And as you may expect, the reveal also came with the community opinions, which are nothing short of pure bloodsport, as ideologies clash as to what Zombies truly is at its core. So the goal of this video is to take all of the information from both Treyarch and the content creators alike and condense it into one place so that you can always refer to it in case you need to. And while I'm sure we all have our disagreements as to what is going on here, I think we should talk about the reveal itself and everything we can expect in just a few weeks' time. Afterwards, I will present a nuanced take that obtains both pros and cons about the state of Zombies as well as Treyarch, and I will also pose some questions and ideas about what I hope comes down the pipeline for this new Modern Warfare Zombies mode. So let's dive in. The first question to answer is, what is MWZ? Well, it's an open world Zombies mode which takes place on the new Warzone map, Urzikstan. It's a PvE extraction shooter with COD Zombies mechanics and gameplay features. The best way to describe this mode is to simply say that it's DMZ from MW3 with a dash of Zombies flair. I break down how the mode works a little deeper in a previous video called What the Hell is Going On with Modern Warfare Zombies, which will pop up on your screen right now and also be linked in the description below the like button. But what this means briefly is that the player loads into a match and begins at the outer edges of the big map, slowly completing contracts, missions, killing zombies, etc. And by doing these things, the player collects points and then can purchase in-game items to become more powerful. After you have progressed to a certain point of your choosing, you can exfil from the map and bring with you all of the items and loot you collected, and then start a new match which will bring in all of the content from the previous game. With this concept, each game allows you to push a little deeper, a little further into the more difficult zones of the map where you will progress through the story and defeat various bosses. Now that we know what Modern Warfare Zombies is, let's talk about the story implications so we know more or less what is going on here. After we completed the Forsaken Easter egg, Requiem, who we played as, succeeded at stopping the outbreak, defeated the Forsaken, and dumped ethereal contents at what appears to be at the bottom of the ocean. And Dr. Peck leaves us at a cliffhanger asking a Japanese fisherman to travel to Mariana's Trench. We then fast forward to Modern Warfare 3 where we see Zakayev seeking out the ether vials with his crew. As they are securing the vials, the player sees Weaver and other members of Requiem's dead bodies, which is a prophecy foretold by the Forsaken in the middle of the ending boss fight. After Zakayev collects the vials and begins to escape, the military police begin fighting him, and in an attempt to escape, Zakayev yeets one of the vials as far as he can, which then explodes, turning everyone in the vicinity into a zombie. This is all occurring in 2021, which takes place in between Modern Warfare 2019 and Modern Warfare 2 as far as the timeline goes. But this is being played inside of Modern Warfare 3, so go ahead and square that circle however you want. It's safe to presume that Treyarch's game in 2024 will be taking place after Black Ops Cold War and will pick up where we left off with Peck, or at least slightly after that, but that's a video for another day. Our crew in Modern Warfare 3 contains Ravenov from Firebase Z and the Outbreak main quest, Soap from Modern Warfare, and some new characters and old characters along the way who are attempting to prevent the spread of Zakayev's mess by containing it here in Urzikstan. Throughout the game's story missions, we will uncover the mysteries of the Dark Ether in the Modern Warfare universe by completing 3 acts that will contain cutscenes and ending boss fights, as well as fighting against Terminus Outcomes, who is Zakayev's security force that wants to prevent us from succeeding, but we will talk about that in just a bit. So just as we have briefly discussed, this is going to be a mode very similar to DMZ, which means you will start things off in the main menu, picking your weapons, perks, equipment, which will build up game after game as you begin to exfil with more crucial items. There is also a new feature called Acquisitions, which takes the DMZ loadout system to a new level that allows the player to have things like wonder weapons, a variety of perks, and strong items that you can bring in with you at the beginning of your next playthrough.
So things like Pack-a-Punch, weapon rarity, ammo mods, wonder weapons.
Yeah.
All of those things you can find in the match and you can decide to use them then, or you can take them out and just start the next match, load up, Pack-a-Punch, drink 4 perks immediately, and now you're good to go. Like, you're going all the way into the high throw.
Straight into the red zone, juiced up on perks.
And acquisitions are permanent. So if you die in a game with your acquisition equipped, a cooldown timer will begin for your next game that prevents you from using the item right away. And this timer will increase the more important the item is. So for example, a wonder weapon could have a cooldown timer of 48 hours to 72 hours, whereas a perk could have a timer for 8 hours hours or something around then. We are also going to see small features from Outbreak returning as well, things like the ether tools to upgrade your weapons and ether orbs, which would drop currency or small items that you can take with you to defeat enemies, and ether teleporters as well. Just small little things like that which bring cohesion to the world via gameplay. Now, it does seem like we're going to be starting things off with an introductory mission that explains what's going on story and gameplay wise so that we can get a feel of how things work. But overall, we will simply infill to the map and begin exploring, completing small missions and collecting loot, just becoming familiar with your surroundings is all. If we take a look at the map, you'll see that there are 3 areas to explore: the very outer ridge, the orange area, and then the center area, which is obviously red. These will increase in difficulty as you push through and are known as areas 1, 2, and 3. And if you notice throughout the gameplay you're seeing on screen, the zombies will have a Roman numeral 1 through 3 next to their heads, indicating the tier of difficulty that you're facing, which is obviously telling the player which region you are currently in, or it exemplifies that you have taken zombies from another region and brought them into a either more difficult or easier region, as you can lead zombies around anywhere you want in the map. It should also be noted that the difficulty for each tier is based on the current round-based system. So I've heard through the grapevine in the community that the outer tier is about round 5 zombies, and the middle tier is probably around round 20, and then the center tier, or the most difficult tier, is about round 55. So it seems like there's pretty substantial jumps from tier to tier, but the difficulty of the zombies is based off of previous Treyarch titles. Pack-a-Punch is also correlated with each world tier, meaning that there are 3 total locations for Pack-a-Punch that change every time you load into a match, and when you find the machine in the correlated region, you will be able to upgrade your weapon to that particular damage tier. So if you have somehow made your way into the yellow zone of the map and you find the Pack-a-Punch machine and upgrade your weapon, you will have a damage tier 2 weapon at that point in time. Modern Warfare Zombies is also a timed mode, which means players have 60 minutes with up to 4 teams of 6 people to explore the map, complete as many missions, and collect as much loot as possible and exfil before ultimately dying. The last 15 of these 60 minutes will bring in a ether storm cloud that will wipe out any living thing in its path, but makes all of the zombies and monsters much more difficult than they already are depending on your location. While it's not 100% clear what missions are going to be available, it will likely be close to what we saw with DMZ, where you complete certain faction missions from the main menu and progress through the story that way. But since this is Treyarch we're dealing with here, there's likely to be more of a narrative spin on the format to make it feel more like a mini campaign of sorts. It has been confirmed that during these missions there will be ether teleporters that the player can enter, which will bring them to an exclusive area that contains narrative elements to help push the story along. How deep this goes with the boss fights or specific areas to fight in, we don't know. My guess is that it would be similar to how the holdout missions are presented in Outbreak. They have them appear to teleport the player to a special location in the dark ether, but it's really just a building in the map where you're already located in with a dark ether coat of paint. Hopefully there will be more original locations as well, but of course only time will tell. Now of course, there have been some objectives shown throughout the trailers, things like taking out a horde of zombies, dealing with Terminus outcome soldiers, clearing houses with infectious spores lining the walls, escort missions, disabling ether extractors, and other missions where the player has to interact with a strange dark ether egg. And there's even a mission where the player is interacting with the old runes, which are a reference to some of the lore from Vanguard zombies. I also noticed a dark ether motorcycle in the trailer, which if you look closely emits an ether explosion. And I'm not sure if you recall from Outbreak, but there were missions where the player had to acquire a dark ether canister and you had a temporary ether outburst as a field upgrade. So perhaps those missions are coming back as well, or maybe it's a new field upgrade we can unlock over time. Or it's probably just a vehicle skin for $34.99 in the shop. I'll let you decide. It also seems like a lot of core features from Cold War Zombies are making their way over to MWZ. So it's definitely safe to assume that many of those fun gameplay mechanics are going to be pivotal in this new game mode. Vehicles, perks, weapon tiers, the Cold War style pack-a-punch, enemy types, field upgrades, they're all making a return. The perks that have been confirmed to be in the game so far are of course Juggernog, Speed Cola, Stamina, Quick Revive, PhD, Tombstone, Deadshot, and we also know that the Wonder Fizz will be making an appearance as well. Now I am unsure of all of the nuances between the perks here, but from what we understand, the tier system of sub-abilities inside of the perks is not going to be in this game. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't small differences compared to previous games, it just means that the tier system isn't here. So for example, Tombstone actually has a function now that if you die and then load up into your next game, you can actually retrieve your items from your body later, which is an absolutely fantastic concept that makes Tombstone a viable perk for long-term from gameplay. However, the perks are randomly scattered throughout the map every game, similarly to the Pack-a-Punch, but you can just look at your map and find everything. It's not hidden from you or anything like that, which again is similar to DMZ. All of the field upgrades are in the menu except for the Ring of Fire. This is probably subject to change, but that's how the game was set up when the content creators had played it.
There was no Ring of Fire. Ring of Fire was the only one they did not have there. I'm not sure why.
Frost Blast, Energy Mine, Ether Shroud, Healing Aura, Frenzied Guard, Toxic Growth, Tesla Storm, they are all currently present in the build as of now. And unfortunately, we have only seen gameplay of a few of these. I genuinely hope Ring of Fire makes it back into the game, as it became an instant classic in the zombie zeitgeist, and I would hate to see it disappear only after one game. Alternate ammo types, aka ammo mods, are returning as well. I have scrubbed the footage and I've only seen Blast Furnace or Napalm Burst, whatever you want to call it, applied to any of the weapons, so it's unclear how many of these mods will be there at launch. There are also 3 tiers of Pack-a-Punch, just like in Cold War, which if you watch the gameplay, you will see the Roman numeral marker in the HUD indicating the tier the weapon is currently papped to. We can also see all 3 tiers of the PAP camo. There is a dark green animated camo for tier 1, a wacky, colorful, vibrant camo for tier 2, and then a purple double helix camo for tier 3. Wall buys with wall rarities, the mystery box, ammo crates, and buyable stations are all returning as well, but it doesn't look like salvage or the crafting table is returning, because if you watch the gameplay, it appears that the enemies drop a ton of items, including ammo mods. Those are no longer in Pack-a-Punch, so you don't really need to collect salvage to trade it for anything as a secondary currency. What I bet is happening instead is, since Warzone has these buy stations, they are likely going to be littered everywhere throughout the map, where you can purchase special grenades like monkey bombs or Casimirs, or even kill streaks and use them against various enemies during the playthrough. And when it comes to guns, there is going to be a lot to chew on here, as Treyarch claims there will be over 100 weapons to grind camos on, specifically in zombies. Not only are all of the Modern Warfare 3 weapons going to be able to be leveled up with rewards, but so are all of the MW2 guns from the previous game. So there is literally going to be so many camos to grind, which is both intimidating and exciting. And lastly, in this category, we have the coveted wonder weapon list, and so far we know of 3 wonder weapons that will be making their way into the map. The first weapon, of course, is the ray gun. We also have the Wonderwaff DG2, which I was not expecting at all, and there has been no gameplay footage of this to my knowledge. And then finally, there is a brand new wonder weapon called the Scorcher, which looks like a giant dark ether satellite that you shoot a huge blob of ether material and just wipe out an entire horde. You can also fly into the air by using the weapon's alternate fire, which will be a great way to travel around the map, especially if you get into sticky situations. This wonder weapon kind of looks like the Sliquifier plus some new die shockwave plus some paralyzer hybrid. It's a very interesting weapon. I'm pretty excited to use it, actually. Throughout these missions, contracts, and just in the open world in general, the player will encounter a pretty wide variety of enemies, most of which occur within tier 2 of the big map. According to both the devs and content creators who played the mode early, there will be hellhounds, zombies, armored zombies, manglers, mimics, disciples, and a new enemy type called mega abominations. Now, the zombies and the armored zombies are going to be peppered out through the entire world, and the mini bosses will begin appearing in World Tier 2, as I previously mentioned. And then the final world tier, or the red zone, is where you will see the mega abomination, as it appears he is the final boss of sorts, depending on which missions you are attempting to complete at any given time. All the enemies have had a bit of a redesign, which is a nice touch, as this does take place roughly 40 years in the future. And they all have this desaturated, grotesque look compared to the more bright and colorful Treyarch tone that we normally see in their games. But that's not all we have to deal with. AI soldiers are also making their way into the map, like we discussed a bit before. We will see regular soldiers all the way up to juggernauts, and likely much more as time progresses and updates continue to process through the game. It seems like these enemies are able to be killed by zombies and will focus on the zombies if you bring the undead over to them in a large horde, meaning you can use hordes as your advantage, kind of like a weapon.
And you basically train them right into the human
Oh, that's
AI.
cool.
And,
Okay.
And it's basically, the zombies are third-partying.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is awesome. So you just kind of sneak by as they're causing all the carnage, so you can loot, get what you need, and get out. I can't express the moment when you unleash your own zombie horde on the human AI. it's really satisfying.
There is also a very high chance that there will be a good amount of missions making the player interact with these AI, so keep that in mind. But this is a bit of a confusing topic because Miles Leslie at the COD Next event said that you can ignore the AI soldiers if you want, so there is a bit of a disconnect in terms of signals coming in here. But it's tough to say how good or bad these systems will be come launch, but more often than not, having enemies shoot back at you in zombies is never a good thing, but I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. Now, if you're a player like me who loves zombies for the boss fights, it seems like there are going to be a good amount of them throughout this world. We have the Mega Abomination, which is 3 times the size of the Abomination from Cold War, and this guy is so big that he can't fit into buildings, so he will flush you out by giving birth to crawlers that can damage you. There are also world bosses, but we are not sure exactly how these are going to be integrated and if there's only one for the time being, but if you scrub the trailer and make your way to the very end, you will see a giant worm menacingly looking over the player. Lastly, there are missions throughout the mode that will let you take down buildings of AI, which will give you a key that you can unlock an even more dangerous building with that once cleared has its own mini boss called a Warlord boss. And I'm sure taking down these bosses or completing the more difficult missions and contracts are going to be great ways to exfil with acquisitions and loot for your next playthrough. Speaking of exfilling, there is approximately a 20 to 30 second delay from the time you get into the helicopter to when it takes off. This means that your safety is paramount, as zombies can come into the helicopter and kill you as they swarm the chopper while it's taking off. This is such a great idea, as not only does it make the difficulty level increase, but it's one of the reasons that exfilling sucked so much in Cold War, because once you made it to the helicopter, it was game over. There was no risk at all. So this is a great way to change it up and add a small bit of variation to every ending of your match. So as of right now, there are no Easter egg quests, at least in the traditional sense. So that means, just for now, there is no Drak style main quest that leads to a secret boss fight that has a 35-minute Mr. Raffle Waffles guide attached to it. There are going to be missions, there are going to be contracts, there will be bosses, there will be secrets, but it's in a completely different context, so it needs to be evaluated as such. And according to Charlie Intel, Modern Warfare Zombies at launch will not feature an Easter egg quest. There is a main quest story with 3 acts to complete to unlock narrative cinematics that connect the Dark Ether story. Easter egg quests and additional quests will come post-launch. I am sure there will be hidden things in the map that we discover and homages to old content or future content we can't even conceive of yet. But for now, we're just gonna have to hang tight and wait and see what happens as far as Easter eggs go, because we really just haven't experienced this mode yet, so it's just too soon to tell how they're going to implement stuff like that. What's also exciting is that Rebirth Island and Fortune's Keep are also going to be returning during the life cycle of MW3, and while that doesn't confirm that zombies will be playable on those maps, it would definitely be pretty badass if that were the case, so we could have some sort of a map rotation. And there are also heavy connections to Warzone, which this map is the Warzone map, so I don't see why it wouldn't happen. And as I talked about in my last video regarding MWZ, I really hope that we get special POIs that will pop up seasonally for zombies, as things like Building 21 and Ashika Island, etc. They really do add variety and just could bring a nice spin to the mode to keep it feeling fresh, so we're not always playing on Urzikstan. Okay, so now that we've talked about everything that's supposed to be in the game, let's talk about the implications of that content and what I'm worried about and excited about. I also want to know what you think in the comments as well, but let's try to be constructive here. I know the tensions are high, but I believe that if we provide Treyarch with genuine feedback, they will listen, as opposed to us just yelling at them and hoping that they hear it somehow, some way. So let's just calm down and take some deep breaths and talk about it. I think the first main issue we have as a community is that we are judging this from the lens of a round-based experience. So things like no solo play or a 60-minute timer, they seem daunting at first, but they aren't creating a round-based zombie system, which means these features aren't necessarily indicative of a negative experience. That being said, my main concern for the mode is that it appears to lack a solo-friendly component. I know that you can go in solo and bump into other squads, but even so, I just think it would be great to be able to take down a world boss and complete missions without the need for other players. The downside to it becoming solo-friendly means that squads are going to lose out on it being challenging, which at first glance, the mode appears to be difficult. I think we will have an uphill battle here in terms of finding a solo balance, but as long as the co-op experience isn't debilitating like it is in public matches for regular zombies, I think we may be okay. I also have some questions about the point system in Modern Warfare Zombies. Is it going to be similar to BO4 and Cold War, where every zombie zombie has a fixed number of points baked into it, or are you able to maximize your points in the more difficult zombie zones by using weaker weapons to farm points? I could actually see both options being viable for an extraction shooter, since the point is to loot out with as much gear as possible, and the fact that there is a timer means that the system couldn't be abused. Now, I know that we've already gone over and that Treyarch has indicated there are no Easter eggs at launch, or perhaps they just mean no Easter egg quests at launch, but I'm very curious to know if the wonder weapons in the map are able to be acquired via a quest, or if they are only able to be picked up from the mystery box. And on top of that, are they able to be upgraded even further outside of the Pack-a-Punch machine? I would presume that you can only get the wonder weapons from the box, since the locations for everything reset every game, which would make it hard to create a small quest line of sorts unless they tied it to a landmark location rather than in-game features, which again reset every single time. And how is post-launch content supposed to work? When is the main quest coming, if there ever is going to be one? What will it look like? Are we going to have zombies exclusive raids? Are we going to have exclusive world bosses, limited time modes, limited time bosses? Will there be RPG Ether Crystal grinds where we can level up our characters outside of the game? What about new Pack-a-Punch camos throughout the game's life cycle? Is Rebirth Island and Fortune's Keep making its way into Modern Warfare Zombies? Will those versions of Modern Warfare Zombies come with their own world bosses, camos, etc.? Are we going to get new perks or wonder weapons over time? Now that I've had some time to think about things, more questions are bubbling up to the surface, which is making things potentially concerning regarding the post-launch content and seasons 1 through 6 coming down the pipeline. Because during every DLC launch in traditional Call of Duty fashion, we would get these new features just baked into the new map. So how are they going to update those over time? How do they get away with that, or how do they get away with not doing it regarding this new mode? It's all very exciting and confusing and scary because we just have no idea how this new mode is going to work. It's completely uncharted territory for the community. Now, I do have a small tidbit of information regarding round-based zombies. This is coming from Codename Pizza, and there seems to be some good news regarding this topic, but what he says is a bit unclear, so I'm just going to roll the clip and let you decide for yourself.
No, round-based is, I'm telling you, I can't say too much, but I would say that before the next game, you will be playing round-based on this. We've all pushed our things on that, by the way. I've not just come here to be a yes man. Like, I've come here to play a game, give my genuine feedback, and tell them exactly what I want and what I think the community wants in this game. So you're good. Okay, I'm saying the same things you guys are saying. I'm saying the exact same things that you guys are saying.
Overall, I'm glad that the Zombies YouTubers are advocating for the community and pushing for things like round-based content and letting the devs know what we really want. Because let's face it, round-based is what the community wants. But we also have to remember that Outbreak is part of Zombies now, whether we like it or not. And this mode, Modern Warfare Zombies, has been being worked on for a long time, and it's not some measly bullshit slapped together in a week before launch like Vanguard Zombies was. Not only is Treyarch's main AAA team working on the mode, there is love, passion, and tons of talent being poured into it, and not to give it a chance, it's just unreasonable and unfair thinking. Treyarch has had an uphill battle since the middle of Black Ops 4's lifecycle in 2019. From having their resources cut during Alpha Omega and Tag der Toten's release, to being forced to work on Black Ops Cold War because of Raven and Sledgehammer Games' inability to work with one another, to having to deal with the conditions of the pandemic during development, to having to be forced to create Vanguard Zombies and use their lower level developers to do so. Literally everything that could have ever gone wrong for Treyarch has gone wrong. But here's the thing, this isn't an excuse for them because we are the customer and we end up paying the price for their failings. And I think that's wrong. But it doesn't mean that those things were done intentionally to sabotage the community. It's just all unfortunate bullshit. But here's the last thing I will say about this whole entire situation. Treyarch has had 4 uninterrupted years to work on their Call of Duty game since Black Ops Cold War. And when that game releases 1 year from now, if it is terrible and they fail to deliver on what the community has been asking for regarding zombies, then I will agree, Zombies is dead and we should all forget it. But until then, let's enjoy our time with Modern Warfare Zombies for what it is while we wait for the real goods in 2024. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.
Before we saw Zakayev yeet the vial in the cinematic.